Hey everyone, and welcome to the Raw review here on Wrestling with Regret. Let's dive right into this. It is the final Raw before the Rumble pay-per-view on Sunday. The show opens up with the MessiahManiacs. That's my clever little name for Seth Rollins, AOP, and their newest member, Buddy Murphy. On the mic, Seth Rollins thanks the fans for their faith, thanks Buddy in particular. The show highlights from last week's fist fight and the reveal with Buddy joining the group, and so Seth is gloating about that, taking out the big show, and so he basically says, you're either Nexus or you're against us. Out comes Samoa Joe and Kevin Owens to interrupt, and they want to fight, and Seth says, come on, bring it on. But then Joe and Kevin bring out their backup. It's the Viking Raiders, the Raw Tag Team Champions, to even things up, and they has fight. The goodies run in and chase away the baddies, and then afterward, we find out after the break, Seth announces that he and Buddy are challenging the Viking Raiders for the Raw Tag Team Championships later in the night. That was a pretty good opening segment. It establishes more of just, Seth's character as the cult leader, as the self-proclaimed Messiah, kind of a formal introduction to Buddy joining the group, and sets up more challengers and more people who are trying to fight and take down Seth and his friends. First matchup is the U.S. Championship ladder match as Andrade defends against Rey Mysterio. They say this is the first championship ladder match on Raw since 2007. That, by the way, was Jeff Hardy versus Carrillo for the IC title on the 15th anniversary edition of Raw. And this match was just insane. I mean, on and off for the last year plus, these guys have been delivering just straight wrestling clinics, really fun matches, and now they elevated it just a little bit with the ladder stuff here. All week I was in fear for Rey's career because, again, the last ladder match I saw him in was against Eddie Guerrero at SummerSlam 05, and that whole thing was a very glorious, beautiful train wreck is the best way to describe that. Go check out my SummerSlam 05 review for more details on that. There were a couple of moments in this matchup where I thought, oh, that's a nasty botch, or could have been a nasty botch, but, again, not as bad as the one with Rey and Guerrero. But this was a great match. These guys just great big moments here. At one point, Andrade with a big second rope powerbomb to Rey across a ladder bridge. Sunset flip powerbomb by Rey to the top of one ladder onto another ladder bridge. In the end, Zelina Vega, she climbs the top of the ladder and sits on top of it and just blocks Rey from getting involved and grabbing the belt. Andrade hits him with a hammerlock DDT through the other ladder bridge, which was the most devastating looking thing all night. Andrade's able to climb the ladder. He retains the championship. Again, thanks to Zelina Vega, but that repetitive nature of it aside, still a very entertaining match. Really good stuff to see. If you watch one match this week, unless SmackDown blows you away with something on Friday, make it this one. Then after the match, they peel back the padding on the concrete and they threaten to drop Rey on his head. Out comes a fan from the front row wearing a Rey Mysterio mask, who we saw periodically with some other masked fans. The way they kept coming back to it, oh, that's going to play a part in this match at some point. The guy unmasks, and it's Humberto Carrillo, who we have not seen since last month when Andrade dropped him on his head during the gauntlet match and everything. So this was a big return for Humberto. Gets a pretty decent reception upon the return, and he chases Andrade up the ramp and everything. So he seems to be the next guy in line to fight Andrade. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see what they can bring. I mean, we already knew in advance what they could do, but now maybe with the championship involved, could be elevated a little bit more. We get a lovely MLK tribute package, and of course, because we just saw Zelina Vega, that means we gotta see next Aleister Black, who's in a match with some local talent. The match begins, the match ends, one black mass is all it takes for Aleister to win. Easy payday for the local man. It's Brocky Brock time. Paul Heyman uses a lot of words to describe how a Rumble match works in case you didn't remember, and then he goes, who out there is man enough to challenge Lesnar? Whomst I ask you? And out comes Ricochet, who honestly I didn't expect that, didn't see that coming. And Ricochet actually is pretty strong on the microphone here. He stands up to Lesnar saying, I've done all these crazy moves in the ring. I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid of you. He gets in the ring and he challenges Lesnar to a fight. Lesnar just kind of shakes his head and walks off. Ricochet calls him scared, and Lesnar turns back around, takes Ricochet to Dick Kick City, and then just walks off. Actually, before he walks off, he grabs the mic and goes, not scared, and very matter-of-factly, kind of a play on what happened last week, but I thought it would have been funnier if Lesnar just goes, that's what's up. Make that his new catchphrase. He just humiliates one dude and goes, that's what's up, and walks off. Didn't get that, though. This one was kind of weird for me. This is, no, it was just the low blow, and that was it. No merciless beatdown afterward, no F5. We didn't even hear his music afterward. It was just like he walks off after a single dick kick. I'm having a hard time figuring out if that was better or worse for Rico, because maybe you could try and play that up and say, oh, he was so brave and so fearless fearless, and maybe Lesnar let him off easy because he had the balls to stand up to Lesnar. We didn't really get the kind of explanation on commentary. We might get it for the Rumble match. I'm not optimistic about it. Kind of cool to see Ricochet get this moment on the microphone and get himself over that way, but for him to end so unceremoniously with the low blow, and that was it. Like, that seems kind of out of character for Lesnar, because he's always the one who just like always beasts and spams the finishers and stuff. Didn't get that with Ricochet. Again, was that a respect thing? Was that a mercy thing? Or was that just, let's just pour a little bit more dirt in Ricochet? Randy Orton is interviewed backstage. He's asked about Drew McIntyre's chances in the Rumble match, and Orton goes, well, he can't beat the 3 most dangerous letters, yada da da. You know, Orton has never been a great promo, but I wish he was a bit more inspired. I feel like ever since he turned face, well, ever since last year when he came back and started doing the 3 most dangerous letters shtick, like, it's just so formulaic now. I think that's kind of his crutch. I don't know, or maybe the writers just aren't giving him anything. Maybe he doesn't want anything special. Who knows? Anyway, our next matchup is Orton versus Drew McIntyre. Before the break, Drew accidentally nails a ringside attendant with the Claymore on the outside. He gets him, goes, like big old shrug. It's all fun and games to Drew. They were kind of hitting each other pretty hard. At one point, I don't know what connects to make Orton check his tooth every couple of moves. It must have knocked something loose. After a big superplex, the club show up and they start beating down on Drew. The referee just walks out. Doesn't even ring the bell. It's just like there's no contest finish, but bell doesn't ring or anything. And then Orton clears house with a chair. Nice seeing you guys, AJ and Carl and Luke. And so then Orton gets in Drew's face, calls him a tough son of a bitch, and then hits him with an RKO afterward. And then after RKO goes up the ramp, after RKO, Randy, Mr. Orton, goes up the ramp, and Drew grabs a microphone, and as he's selling, he says, you know, that's the one I'll give you, but I'm going to knock your head off your shoulders in the Rumble match. I'm going to win the Rumble match, and I'm going to go main event WrestleMania. You know, it's one of those things where, on the one hand, nothing was really gained from this, except for maybe devaluing the club, but Orton and Drew are in the same position they were at the beginning of the matchup. No one really gains an advantage. On the other hand, the way they kind of did the 50-50 thing, where it's like, yeah, Orton hit the RKO, but then Drew was able to, you know, get up kind of and talk some trash, get the last word in. You know, it's like it just adds more to the ambiguity and the unpredictability, I think, of who's going to win the Rumble match. I mean, I might repeat this later in this review, but really, there's no one I can think of who can definitively say that dude's going to win the Rumble. And like Raw, they're really kind of building once again, Drew being a top guy. They're teasing that Orton could be a possible contender. So there are some obvious like names, but there's a pretty large field of names across both Raw and SmackDown. We go backstage and see Charlotte being interviewed in a real nothing promo here, because the only thing she says of substance is, you know, are those 29 other women ready to face the queen? Woo. It really just reminds you that she is there and that she exists and she's going to be in the Rumble match, and that's pretty much it. The only thing that really adds some like meat and pads some time with this promo is in the middle of it, Becky Lynch just walks in, smiles at her, and leaves. Just a real hello, goodbye thing. So that really... if it weren't for that, it would have been a much shorter, much more bland promo. But anyway, we go to our next match as Becky takes on Sane, and Becky takes a shot at Asuka in the pre-match promo, saying, yeah, you beat me at the Rumble last year, but who really won in the end? I have been making history all over the world, and you're on YouTube making soup. During the matchup, Asuka spends a lot of time like on the top turnbuckle, just sitting there barking orders at Kairi and stuff, and strangely, the referee is just letting that one go. In the end, Becky knocks Asuka off her perch, literally, then puts Kairi in the disarm her to win. Then right afterward, Asuka gets in, starts beating up Becky, puts her in the Asuka lock, big kick to the head, and so they leave her laying and everything. And so then after the match, we get a post-match promo where Sarah Schreiber's getting real mouthy with Asuka, like, are you kind of champion to be proud of? And then Asuka and Kairi answer in Japanese, and Asuka says that Becky's not ready for her. I really enjoyed the build for this one because I think they've done a really good job just building Asuka as this like legitimate contender and a real challenge to Becky's reign here, because she has gotten the drop on Becky the last couple of weeks here and really making her look viable. And they bring up the history, the fact that Asuka's generally had Becky's number. So makes this match for me one to watch. We get a nice memorial package for the late Rocky Johnson. Then our next match for the Raw Tag titles as Seth and Bud Murph take on the Viking Raiders. AOP are in Seth and Buddy's corner, and then Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe are the Vikings corners. Those 4 guys brawl their way to the back early in the match. They're pretty much a non-issue. The match itself itself was pretty good. I think the Vikings look great here against Seth and Buddy. Ultimately, a sneaky stomp by Seth on the apron to Eric while the referee's back is turned allows Buddy to capitalize and pin Eric to win. So Buddy and Seth are the new Raw Tag Team Champions. Seth, once again, I forget how many times he's won the belt now, the Raw Tag titles, but Buddy has his first championship win since his time as Cruiserweight Champion last year. So all that waiting and all that, the time he's been off TV for God knows how long, finally pays off in a nice little push for him and a championship win. I know a lot of people were kind of questioning, like, you know, why don't you have this established team in AOP challenge the Viking Raiders for the titles? I'm going to echo something that Steve from Going in Raw said on Twitter tonight, where, you know, it's so in line with Seth's character, this kind of messiah, this god complex, this cult leader kind of thing, where he takes the charge and he wants the glory and all that sort of thing. So I get that from that perspective. Also, I think it's kind of like a placeholder for Seth, because like I said last week, would it be so much more compelling if this were for a championship? And it's no singles gold, but Seth as a champion, I think that adds a lot more legitimacy and credibility to the angle in whatever form the championship comes in. The Viking Raiders, I feel kind of bad for them as champions, because aside from a very brief program with, you know, the Street Profits and then the club together, the OC, that to me was like, that was it. They just like put them against a bunch of like jobbers and local talent week after week. Didn't really get to show much as champions, I feel. They pretty much ran roughshod through a bunch of jobbers, so their time as champions, it didn't feel like it really added anything to, you know, the tag scene, if anything. They could have not had the belts. It wouldn't have made a difference. So hopefully with Seth and Buddy having the championships, that might add more to their cred, like not just the group, but also the belts themselves. And again, more championships might be on the way for Seth in the wake of all this. Who's to say? We get another Monday after weekend update segment with the Street Profits, and I said the first time they did that thing a while ago how much I didn't like it. I didn't think it really fit their characters all that well, but this one I think really improved on the first one, if I'm being honest. I like how they kind of shook things up with, here's a cutaway with R-Truth doing green screen correspondence, and here's a weird video package of Otis gyrating around to Val Venus's old music. So they kind of breaking it up a little bit, doing more jokes like that. I think it played, you know, I feel the Street Profits as characters have kind of caught up in the silliness of the concept of Monday after weekend updates. So it makes more sense now with them than it did last time, if that makes any sense. So yeah, better segment this time around. Matt Hardy takes on Eric Rowan. The mystery critter bites Rowan's hand again. There's blood again. More beatdown on Matt Hardy. Blood-soaked iron claw. You know, squiggity squash. Rowan wins. Poor Matt Hardy. Backstage, we see Samoa Joe and Kevin Owens talking about how they're both going to be in the Rumble match, and they basically reiterate the whole every man for himself kind of shtick, where it's like, well, you know, side by side we'll take on Seth Rollins and friends, but, you know, I'll take you out if I have to win the match and whatnot. We then go elsewhere backstage, the new 24/7 champion, Mojo Rawley, and he gets absolutely no reaction when he walks into the frame. Usually in these backstage interviews, when someone walks in, you get, at the very least, a mild, like, kind of the seagull pop, you know, happening with that, but you get nothing like that with Mojo here. Basically, he says that, you know, the previous 24/7 champions have all been cowards running away, and before he can really finish his thought, the Singh brothers show up and they try and pull a fast one on him and take the belt, but Mojo's not going down. He's too strong, and he walks off. I don't know where was this when Mojo was first chasing Truth for the belt months ago. In what is inexplicably your main event of the evening, Bobby Lashley and Lana take on Rusev and Liv Morgan in a mixed tag team matchup. In the pre-match hype package, they finally acknowledge there's like some kind of connection between Liv Morgan and Lana, but it's not really expanded upon by saying, how could you do this to me? And the word love is never used, and again, the announcers spend no time talking about that. So just really makes you wonder, why is Liv here? What is her motivation? It's just, there's a lot of questions, like I said, from last week. A lot of questions need to be answered of what's going on here. We do get a little bit of intergender action in this one, where at one point in the match, Lana hits Rusev with like a forearm, and they call it a cheap shot because the referee's back was turned. About a minute later, Liv Morgan hits Bobby with an enziguri in front of the referee, and they're not legal together. And Jerry Lawler rightfully points out, how come that's not a cheap shot? Also, by the way, when she does hit Bobby, the reaction is really lukewarm for it, which could be one of two things. Either whether, hey, it's progress that, now we've got men and women fighting each other in the ring to the point where it's not such a shock value thing anymore, or why people don't have a reason to care for Liv Morgan. So who cares that she kicked Bobby Lashley? Also worth pointing out, Liv Morgan looks like a tiny bit different in the ring than she did before she was taken off TV. Like, there's no hair dye anymore, there's no blue tongue, so yeah, take all the originality out of her. Anyway, the match ends when Lana distracts Rusev, spear by Lashley and Lana win again. Man, Rusev cannot catch a break to save his life, and that's how your go-home episode of Raw before the Royal Rumble ends, folks. Don't you want to watch the show now? My final grade for this week's Raw is a C+. I'm going to give it the plus for the ladder match and the Raw Tag title match, but besides that, I thought it was a pretty blasé way to end Raw's side of the build for the Rumble. There were some bright points, those matches like I said. Also, I've been enjoying Asuka's build, and the Weekend Update parody with the Street Profits better than the last time they did it, in my opinion. But some not so great points with the show as well. I feel with Lesnar being in the Rumble match as the champion, he has no specific person that he has heat with. He has no one he's feuding with, so there is no heat to those appearances he's been making. There's been diminishing returns with those appearances, because last week when Truth showed up, that was great. That was very entertaining. This one with Ricochet this week, not so much. And that mixed tag team match, the main event, that was not the business. The one silver lining, I think, to the Rumble build right now, it does feel kind of bland, because again, Lesnar's in there and he's got no heat with anyone. And then because of the nature of the brand split, you don't have like people fighting for a number 30 spot. You don't have you've got all these different people who, it really is unpredictable in a good and a bad way, because there's no real obvious ones. There's no one like, oh, that makes the most sense to have win. But then again, you also have all these potential options. You could I think easily fantasy book your way to the Mania main event with a good handful of guys on this show. There's no clear winner, I think. Maybe some of you might disagree. Roman's with a safe bet, I guess, but even him, Baron Corbin could screw him over again. You don't know. So I feel that the field every year, I feel lately, has been just wide open for the Rumble match. And so time will tell, but I guess that's the one silver lining is that, man, I'm genuinely wondering who's going to win that match. But let me know what you thought about Raw this week in the comments section below, and be sure to give it a letter grade by going to the iCard in the corner of your screen. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.